So how do you take your clients on a journey on the timeline?
Good question. Once you've elicited the timeline, you then take your clients on a journey on the timeline. And what this installs is the floating above the timeline. It's taking them back into the past, back to now, out into the future, and back into now. So it installs the three positions on the timeline. So let me give you an example. In the previous video, we elicited your timeline. So what I'd like you to do is to go ahead and close your eyes. And as you close your eyes, I'd like you to recall the location of your timeline. And just begin to remember the colour and the distance. And what I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to float up above that timeline. Floating up above that timeline, like the feeling of floating in the bath, or the sounds floating on the wind, or even visually. However you do it is perfect. I just want you to float right up above now. So you're looking down onto now. And just take an imaginary red pin and just put that right there on your timeline to signify now. And as you're floating above the timeline, I'd like you to float back a week into the past. And just float back a week into the past. And when you get there, begin to notice what you can see. Maybe there's something that you can hear or feel, or maybe it's just a sense of knowingness. However you do that is perfect. And now I want you to float higher and further back. And I want you to float higher and further back, a month into your past. And when you get there, have a look down on that timeline. What is it that you can see? What can you see a month ago? What can you hear? And what can you feel? Or maybe it's just that sense of knowing. And just remember. And now, floating higher and further back into the past. I'd like you to float all the way back, a year, out into your past. And when you get there, notice what was happening a year ago into your past. What can you see? What can you hear? What do you feel? And even, what do you sense? And just remember. And now floating higher and further back into the past, I want you to float all the way back to the beginning of your timeline, to the beginning of this time, all the way back as far as you can go. Remember, as far as you can remember, back into the past. And when you get there, notice, what can you see? What can you hear? What can you feel? And what do you know? And just remember. And now, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to float all the way back to above now. All the way back to now, where you put that red pin on your timeline. And when you get there, I want you to float out a week out into your future. I want you to float a week out from today, out into your future. And begin to see what's happening out there, a week into your future. Maybe you can see or hear or feel, or maybe just know something's taking place out there in your future. And just remember. And now floating higher and further out into the future, I want you to go a month out into your future. A month from today, a month from now. And notice what you can see, what you can hear, what you can feel, and what you know is happening a month from now. And just remember. Now floating up higher and further out into the future. I want you to go a year out from now, a year from today, all the way out into your future. And notice what you can see, what you can hear, what you can feel, even what you know is happening a year from now. And floating up higher once again. I want you to float out all the way to the end of this timeline, in this lifetime. Floating all the way out to the end of time. And when you get there, notice what you can see, what you can hear, what you can feel, and what you know is happening at the end of your timeline in this lifetime. And when you're ready, just like you to float back towards now, all the way from the future, all the way back to now. When you get back to now, you'll see that red pin. I just want you to float down towards the red pin, all the way back to now, all the way back into the room, all the way back into your body, all the way back into the chair, all the way back to now. And when you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes. Welcome back.
Thank you.
How was that?
Oh, it was awesome. Loved it.
So what we want to do at this stage is we've installed the timeline, once again, we've installed their ability to go into the past and remember, out into the future and remember. And what I do to heighten the client's experience now is I will ask them, what did you see a week into the past, a month, a year, and at the beginning of their timeline? And I'll ask them, and what happens? It makes the invisible visible. And it's the setup for the timeline therapy process. Now, when it comes to the creating your future process, and we start installing goals on the timeline, they've already gone out and they've seen things out into the future. And we'll ask them, what is out there waiting for you? Now, if there's something out there in the past they didn't like, we can deal with that in timeline therapy. If there's something out in the future that they don't like, we can remove the limitation in the past with the timeline therapy process. Once the future is clear, we can then install new aims, goals, and objectives using the creating your future process. When you do this, in the order and the sequence that I've showed you, your clients will make the most phenomenal changes in their life. Your phone will never stop ringing. You'll have referrals from life, and you'll do exactly what you want to do, which is coach each and every day. Begin today. Apply this to your coaching, and you will be a big success.